Good afternoon, folks. We are going to give everyone just a couple minutes to trickle in. Really excited for today's quick webinar. You consider a webinar, consider a lunch and learn. This is one of the 30-minute ones, not one of the hour-minute ones. So relax, and we will be getting started in just 1 minute. And actually, I'd be super interested if everyone wants to, if you so feel like it, put in the chat what your experience has been since the CDC released their new mask-free guidelines. I can tell you I've been out and about in St. Louis quite a bit, and it feels like we just won World War II. So I imagine you guys might have similar experiences. And Ashley, I'd love to hear where you're located. What has the world been like since the CDC released their new guidelines?
I know. I chuckled because it's so true on some of that. It's just been my nephew, who's 8, literally got to wear no masks this last week. And I said, "How has it been for you?" And he goes, "I get a smile and everyone gets to see me." And I'm like, it's just, that's how it feels. Your eyes could only say so much for so long, it felt like.
Yeah.
So feels refreshing, let's just say.
It really does. And
Yeah.
we'll continue to give folks a couple minutes to trickle in and just kind of talk about our experiences. It was funny because I was meeting with Balto's COO and founder, Chris, out for drinks, and he got there first. And he texted me and he said, "Mark, I walked in through the front entrance and wasn't wearing a mask." He said, "I feel naked."
Yeah.
And it's like, you really do feel that way because you're used to every single time getting it out of your pocket and putting it on.
Oh,
And
yeah.
walking through a restaurant or a business without a mask on, you feel like, oh, geez, who's looking at me?
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
and before they actually came out with the new, guidelines, it was like, do you or don't you, on certain locations and certain places. And yeah, so it feels just confident and refreshing
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, super excited to be, knock on wood, putting all this behind us. And we are just 3 minutes in, so let's get started. For those who haven't met me, and we'll do introduction in just a second. Hi, I'm Mark Bernstein. I'm the founder and CEO at Balto, and we have an awesome topic for you today. It is how you can connect with consumers. And we're covering 2 types of connections. First of all, how do you connect the call to them? How do you make sure you get a consumer on the line? And Dax, we'll be talking a little bit about that. And the second is a topic that's front and center for everybody right now, and it is empathy in collections. How do you connect with your consumer in order to win more payments and hopefully some better business reviews as well? Because boy, does it help when your Google review is not 2 stars or 2.5 stars, and a consumer can go to your and Google you and see, this looks like a really legitimate, reputable operation. So we'll talk about how you can do that too. So if you would mind skipping to the next slide here. I already introduced myself, CEO founder of Balto. And for those who don't know, Balto is real-time guidance. So it analyzes everything that the collector says as they say it. Everything the consumer says is the consumer says it live on the call. And in real time, will give collectors and their managers recommendations on how they can be as effective as possible. Ashley, I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Mark. Yep, I'm Ashley. I've been with Dax for 10 years now. And I really am a client-facing roles, right? So my first position at Dax was customer relationship manager. Before probably that was a thing. I feel like that's popped up in the last number of years, but I was that before it was even on paper, And so I've done a lot of the experience between the sales and marketing side, but what it really comes down to is that community and the communications behind it. And that's kind of how this conversation got connected with Balto, is based on our partnership. Quickly off the ground integration last year. And, it was really exciting, a new integration and new partner to work with. And so, yeah, I'm excited to be here. So thanks, Mark.
You're so welcome, Ashley. So today's agenda, we're going to start with from a very familiar place, and that is the place we've been talking about for the last year with a little bit of a new spin, and that is COVID-19. So what is the consumer mental state right now? What is the financial state? And how has COVID affected their lives? And where are consumers in this very interesting transient time between being in COVID and being out of COVID? The next is, well, do we still have the ability to have a much higher volume of collections? And do we still have any of the stimulus payments left over that we think could help us collect more during COVID? We'll talk a little bit about that. Then third, we'll go into how you can actually connect more of your calls, great workflows and technology you can use to do that. And then last, we will end with empathy and a quick Balto demo, how you connect with consumers on a personal level. A lot of stuff folks have heard before, but some stuff that you probably haven't. So let's just go over the stats real quick. And I know you've heard this a number of times, so I'll focus on the most important stuff. We saw the 14.7% unemployment peak during COVID. But what we haven't really necessarily talked about as much is that 50%, 1 out of 2 of US households lost some or all of their employment income during COVID. And there is a trickle effect for that. What happens after several months where you were out 3 months of income or 4 months of income? And I'm sure we've all heard the stat that a majority of Americans can't afford to pay an unexpected $400 bill. Well, what happens when several months of income are lost? And what does that do to your ability to make a payment today? We also know that there's this interesting increase in the adults that report some symptoms of anxiety or depression, and the mental health toll of COVID has been pretty unprecedented. So if you think about just simply what happens when you rip people away from their friends and their family and their businesses and their routines, and you put everybody in this high anxiety state where every single day the way the entire world is operating and the CDC guidelines are changing and we need to adapt. A lot of us have none of us have ever had an experience where we can adapt to that. So when you have your consumer on the phone, how do you meet them where they're at? How do you recognize that and address that and have a conversation with them in a way that's likely to yield a payment? So we may see that there's still plenty to collect right now, but consumers are in a state where they find it particularly difficult to have these conversations. How can we make sure that we're capturing all that there is to collect while at the same time not pushing consumers to a place that they're uncomfortable? So this is where I will turn it over to Ashley to walk through the details and the basics of how you actually make sure you get the consumer on the phone in the first place.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I was just agreeing during some of that of just the most concept of with COVID-19 impacting all of us in ways that we didn't expect at all. From I think one of my clients called it the collection tsunami, right? So you have, of course, the consumers not being able to make their payments or that process, but then you add in the stimulus checks and that piece where it's just a matter of time of when those placements are going to be getting made, as well as on the client side, right? So you have your customers, well, our customers, but then the clients behind them really beginning to start placing again and putting those accounts through. We've got to be ready as agencies and business owners to be able to increase that that flow, right? And really make sure those calls are connected. So, with that, the question comes up, why are calls not going through? And with that, you have, of course, the telephone carriers, the call blocking apps, and consumers themselves impacting that. And I think one of the stats that I thought was really interesting of the over $11.5 billion in the debt recovery industry each year, a large part, of course, is directly influenced by phone calls. And how do you improve that without having the connection behind the call itself? So the biggest obstacles would be going through the call blocking. I think if we could just go back, yep, perfect. Just the spam labeling and really trying to minimize that and especially with stir shaken. So I don't know if many who are on this call have heard of that, but those registered numbers are super important to your business to be able to mitigate those inaccurate call blocking and mislabeling numbers. And Quick Dial is actually a connector tool that allows for that ability to mitigate that risk. With, of course, registering your phone numbers on the approved list, and then managing how your brand comes across to consumers so that they will be more likely to trust the number coming through and pick it up on the other end. And then, of course, improving your contact rates in addition to that. So yeah, I think we can go to the next. Thanks. And I didn't talk too much on the DAX as a whole earlier, but DAX is the umbrella, if you will, behind Quick Dial. So we have Beyond ARM as our flagship product of our collection software. And it really helps agencies in an era of compliance, technological expectations. But our main focus is really helping our customers with what they need is to improve the recovery on making payments and getting those collections done. So with the flexible solution, you have tools like IVR, flow technology, and voicemail drop, click to call, all various pieces that you can actually utilize in Quick Dial, along with streamlining those communications. So you get to choose how you want to workflow, how that workflow goes in your business to really help alleviate some of that stress behind the connections. And of course, the real-time management, right? You need to be able to schedule those real-time reports, post-call analytics, and really find out what's working with how you can get the optimal performance outside of the connection. And then I guess, right now, so we talk about how to make the connection, right? Now, Mark's going to talk a little bit more on the importance of personally connecting with the consumer on the other line.
Thank you so much, Ashley. And I'll talk about stimulus for 1 second. So I don't know about everyone else, but just this month, I think maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, I got the letter from the Joe Biden White House that said, congratulations, American, your stimulus payment is coming in the next 7 days. That was this month. So when remember that stimulus payments are still out there, and some of the amazing boon that we saw to the collection space last spring, and then also I think it was in the fall or so, or the winter, some of the boon that we saw there with the 2 stimulus payments, there's one more. So this is your time to make sure that you are capitalizing on this opportunity, because a lot of us are wondering, are we going to see collections dry up after this stimulus dries up? Hopefully it won't, but let's make the most of this opportunity right now.
Yeah, and to add to that, Mark, agencies that I've spoke with, their March and April of this year, tax time is usually the Christmas in the debt recovery, debt collection space. But right now, March and April, record numbers in regards to the stimulus checks coming through, the taxes being extended. But like you said, it's a matter of time, right? Until that dries up, or really trying to figure out other ways of making sure we can keep going on that.
Yeah, absolutely, Ashley. Thank you so much. So then if we go to the next slide, let's talk about connection very briefly, why it's important. If we're going to answer this appropriately, we need to be looking at what the power dynamic is right now that consumers are experiencing. Because of course, when we're having a conversation with consumers and trying to collect a payment, there's really a complex power dynamic at play between us having some information or the ability to take some sort of retribution sort of action, like credit reporting, or in some cases not being able to do much at all, and the consumer feeling like I do have the ability to pay or I don't have the ability to pay, and if so, here's how I want to handle it. So we need to be looking at the power dynamic, and the power dynamic right now is particularly interesting. Why? Well, over the last year or so, on one hand, consumers got more power than they've ever had in their lives, like from the ability technologically to be able to connect with friends and family over Zoom and have things instantly. A lot of the economy switched to the instant economy, and that was particularly interesting, right? So a lot of times, whereas previously you had to go into a retail store, now you click a button and you experience the power of Amazon bringing you whatever you asked for. Very different dynamic than we experienced before. So technology had made consumers feel particularly powerful, and we know a lot of folks who selected multiple streaming services. And a lot of folks have multiple streaming services and are almost feeling like masters of the universe in all the different products that they have access to. So on one hand, we saw consumer power increase that way. And of course, that was bolstered by these stimulus payments. So almost purchasing power in many cases went up too. At the same time, on the other hand, there was the power dynamic of being literally locked in our homes and quarantined and having strict guidelines where a lot of our personal freedoms felt like they were being either restricted or infringed, depending on how you view it. But it was a very challenging time for a lot of people, feeling like their power is being stripped away. So where are we now? Where are we now? Well, now we still have the high power dynamic of this technology revolution having everything instantly. And we have the high power dynamic of stimulus. And we have the high power dynamic of people feeling like all their freedoms are back. So if the consumer is at an all-time high in how they perceive power and their ability to navigate the world, when they get on the phone with your collector, do you think they're just going to do what your collector says? In many cases, I don't think so. So I saw an interesting bit of feedback from an agent, one of the collectors using Balto, and they put something in the chat. And they said, I was speaking with this consumer, and the consumer was telling me to speed up. And I told the consumer, I don't work for you, and I'm not going to speed up. And the consumer hung up. And my thought was, of course the consumer hung up. Like, this is not the time where consumers are particularly open to having debates or confrontation. They're used to saying, hey, you don't want to talk to me? Well, I don't want to pay. And end that conversation. So the ability to hook consumers by meeting them where they're at, recognizing their power dynamic, is what we need to do right now. Now, why is that difficult to meet consumers where they're at? Well, first of all, there's the ego component, right? Where if I'm, and I don't mean that in an egotistical way, I mean just like we want to feel proud of ourselves and we want to feel in control. And if I'm a collector, to put that aside when somebody is frustrated or somebody says, I'm not going to pay, or I don't want to pay, or your information is wrong. Very difficult to take a step back, take a breath, and realize they're not attacking you as the collector, they're attacking the situation. So how can we be training our collectors that they're not attacking us as people, they're attacking the situation because they don't even know us, right? So one, you have to put your ego aside. And two is it's a very high stress situation, right? Where when there's any tension, period, it's very difficult to empathize with someone who's yelling at you, right? Or empathize with somebody who is being in any way belligerent. But I'll kind of end this slide on like a positive note. I think that's one of the things that we've seen over the last year is that in many ways we're all very similar, and that there is this desire to connect again. So I think that if we can forge relationships with our consumer and meet them where they're at, that's how we can actually be empathizing with them on their calls. I'll show, next slide, please.
Yeah, Mark, I was just going to add to the fact of listening, right? And being able to, the consumer needs to feel heard. So there's such a balance between the two, but you're not going to get much further until there's an established relationship behind that, for sure.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. And I'll say for anybody who has not seen Mary Shores's content, Mary Shore's the Collections Advantage, she has this awesome program about how she recommends you listen to a consumer and how you empathize with a consumer. And I total shout out to Mary Shore. She's
100%.
not a Balto partner or anything, even though maybe she should be.
Yes.
Yeah, but she has a phenomenal approach, and her content, by the way, on LinkedIn is phenomenal too. So I recommend everyone takes a look at that.
We do have actually some upcoming events going with Mary. We're excited to mention, but I was thinking of her 100% too, Mark, on the compassionate side of it for sure.
Yep. So then, what does Balto do? How do we, bring that empathy to calls? Well, first of all, the most important part of empathizing the consumer on the call is to take a step back. Because if you are in your own brain as yourself trying to collect that payment, it's not possible to be understanding what the other person is saying and what the other person needs if you're coming at it from your perspective. So the first most important thing is this interruption that says, whoa, 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 hold on, hold on, hold on. It's time for some empathy. It's time to understand what the other person's saying. And often you can think about, even I'll use an example of a fight with a spouse, where like if somebody almost like you, a little one, kind of yanks you on your shirt and says, hey, mom, why are you talking like that? That's a really good way to be like, geez, that just pulled me out of my zone. So that step back is the most important piece. And that's what Balto can deliver in real time. So we do that with what we call real-time coaching. That's giving live recommendations to the collector right there on the call. So when the consumer says, I don't have any money, I can't pay you for this, Balto hears that and will automatically pop up your recommendations, including take a step back, I understand, let's see if we can work through this. The second is it's continuous. I think we've all had at some point, I imagine everybody on the webinar has had some like empathy workshop. And you got together, you had a classroom training, you said, okay, folks, we're going to be more empathetic now. And then you did the training and you noticed it stuck for a little bit and then kind of trickled off and trickled off and trickled off. And then 3 months later, the calls sounded the same. Well, what Balto is going to be able to do is continuously reinforce those empathetic practices. So your calls 6 months from now sound just as empathetic as your calls 1 month after the training or 1 day after the training. And then last, just like DAX, we have analytics on our side. Who's using your empathy language, who's not, who's getting payments, who's asking for the payment, who's not, and even specifically which wording is working best. When someone asks question A after this consumer stall, does that work? Versus if they ask question B after the stall, does that work? And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. So with that said, we have just 7 minutes left, and I will show everyone a rapid fire Balto demo. So what everyone should see here is this tiny little panel. And Balto works as this slender application that will sit on the side of collectors' screens. And on their main screen right in front of them, they'll have up DAX, they'll have up your CMS, they'll have up whatever their main screen is right now, and then they'll have Balto over on the right. And Balto is going to ride along with the collector on every call. So when a call comes in, or if the collector makes the call outbound, Balto will get a trigger from DAX, and it'll automatically start up just like this. So it just turned green here. The first thing you all will notice is the key points that you want your collectors to hit on every call. And of course, that comes down to 2 things. One is how do you collect the most money and say the stuff that you got to do in order to get the payment? And then 2 is how do you stay compliant? You need to do both of those things. So you can make the first statement, the 2-party, recording disclosure, and I say, hey, I have to let you know, Ashley, this call may be monitored, recorded for quality training purposes. And boom, Balto heard me say that and automatically checked off that I said that. So Ashley, for security purposes, would you please verify your current mailing address? I do have to let you know this call is from a debt collector attempting to collect a debt, and any information obtained will be used for that purpose, right? One of the recommendations I give folks, especially on the empathy side, is when you get to the mini Miranda, I say, sing the mini Miranda. And of course, you're not literally singing it, but sometimes people do like the Ice Cube. Like, this call is from a debt collector attempting to collect a debt, and it's like it's like a gotcha. And that is the easiest way to get a hang up from a consumer right there on the call. Sing it. This call is from a debt collector attempting to collect a debt, and any information obtained will be used for that purpose. Oh my God, that just sounded like butter. So choose the smoother one. And then, of course, you get to the stuff about actually collecting the payment. And well, yeah, let me ask, how much do you have that you can pay today? If there's some sort of stall or pushback, can you help me better understand what caused you to get behind on your account? Now, imagine if you could scale out to everybody whenever there's a positive interaction, the ability to get more good Google reviews or more better business reviews. Imagine if you could just up that rating, 2 stars, 3 stars. Well, this is how you can do it. When you get a great consumer reaction, you say, wonderful. Would you be able to give us some feedback through a Google review? You can even do a competition because Balto is tracking everything that's happening here, tracking it consumer by or collector by collector, call by call. So you can say, competition, folks, who's asking for the highest number of Google reviews? Whoever does that gets a $25 Starbucks gift card this week, or whatever you might want to do. That's how you can immediately boost your rating. So I just showed you a little bit of the checklist. The second thing that most of the time gets people's attention, I'll scroll down for a second. We see the sticky note. And this is how you can make top of mind whatever your collectors should be focusing on this week. Things like an empathy statement. So imagine if any time there was a stall from a consumer, your collectors always started with, that must be difficult. Let's see if I can work through this together. You all are probably noticing that online with companies, the word together is coming up everywhere. People want to be together. How can you put in your collection script more of the use together? So that's an example of how you can scale out any message. And then the consumer says, you know, Mark, I'm so sorry. I just don't have the money for this right now. You know, I can't afford to do any sort of payment. Balto heard me say that, and to me as the collector, automatically popped up my talking points, right? So this first item right here can be an empathy statement. That can be what I just said a minute ago. That must be difficult. Let's see how we can work through this together. And I'll scroll down and click it because you can actually click it as well. And then you can put the various options, the ways you want collectors to respond. You can even test it. And you can say, when someone says, tell me about your situation that's preventing you from paying this. When someone says that, maybe they win a payment 10% of the time. Versus when they say, hey, Ashley, really fortunately, we actually have options available. So let's see what will work best for you. And maybe that works 12% of the time. So you can bring this testing focus into your collections floor so your collectors are getting better and better and better. And one of the best things about that is even the veteran collectors are seeing new content pop up all the time. So it's not like, oh, I already know how to do this. They're seeing the best things that the other experienced collectors are saying right there in front of them. So with that said, we just have 1 minute left. I will bring it back to the presentation. And would you like to, Ashley, maybe tell everyone about our giveaway and what we're doing here?
Sure. Yeah, I was going to just add to that, Mark, of how important it is to be able to, you know, collectors sometimes when they're professionals and they just are, it's hard to teach old dogs new tricks type thing. If they can see the proof, it's so important for them willingness to learn and to change and to improve those skills. You know, we always are learning those soft skills and how important that is. So great stuff. Yeah, so the giveaways today, thanks for everyone joining us. What we want to do, you can email myself at ashley@dax.com with any questions about Quick Dial, beyond collection software, and any of Dax's connector tools. We're giving away today a $50 Amazon gift card to anyone who schedules a demo via the chat link. I think Brittany posted that in there, as well as or reaching out to her directly on email. Let's see. Oh yeah, and we just need to sign up for a Balto demo and would love to get that squared away for you guys.
Easy peasy. Thank you all so much. The info is right there in the chat, so copy that right now if you'd like to see a Balto demo or speak with Dax. And we're even going to send you all a $50 gift card. If you sign up for a demo, you take a demo with Balto, we'd be thrilled to walk you all through that and send you a gift card. Just thanks for attending.
Yep.
So let's Go
And
ahead.
to add to that, Mark, I would just say on the DAX side, setting up a discovery call, we would love to talk through your business needs on that end, both from the collection software platform, but also for Quick Dial and that solution in the connector tool. So
beautiful. We'll let everyone go right here at the half hour. Thank you all again so much, and join you next time.
thanks, everyone.
See ya.